Hi, friends. Welcome back. I'm Emily.
And I'm Whitney.
And you're listening to Cousins Talk Crime. You're listening to a true crime podcast. Today's episode may include sensitive or triggering topics. These topics may include domestic abuse, child abuse, substance abuse, sexual assault, torture, murder, and suicide. So, Whitney,
Yes.
how was your week?
It was good. It was really busy.
Really
We
busy.
had that holiday weekend and that threw me off having a holiday on
Yeah.
Monday.
I thought you were ghosting me from the podcast. I was like, I tried texting you a few times. I'm like, wow, she's really busy.
No, but I didn't hear from you. And then you were like, I've just taken this, we had both kind of just
Yeah, I know.
relaxed.
I did. I think last weekend was the first weekend I wasn't completely consumed with the podcast.
Yeah.
I had to draw a line. I had to set a boundary.
Yeah.
Like one weekend I'm going to do podcast stuff and the next weekend
Yeah.
it's spent doing schoolwork, doing stuff with my husband, just too much podcast stuff. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
I never realized how much work goes into it, but it does. There's a lot of work that goes into it.
We went live on game night.
We did.
Nights ago.
We went live on game night. That was, hey, let us know if you were live on game night. Like if you were there, was that something you would enjoy to see again?
Yeah.
I think, and I thought it was funny because our moms, both of our moms, not just one of our moms, both of our moms, they were coaching us the whole time.
Yeah, how to talk to you guys and what to say.
I'm like, I think we've been doing the podcast for a couple months now, and we've done a couple lives. I think
we were just kind of set back and letting you guys watch what goes on
at
game night.
yeah. That's pretty much what it was. We're just having game night. It's fine. But yeah, it was adorable. They were coaching us the whole time. Now, I did want to mention, I'm not sure, I feel like we've had some listeners kind of pop in that maybe aren't following us on Facebook, so we're very active on Facebook, not super active on other social medias. So if you're not a part of our Facebook, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that you're missing out on. So go find us on Facebook. But if Facebook's not your thing, I just want to let you know that we do upload. If you're watching this on YouTube, we do upload to Spotify, Amazon Music, all that stuff, the audio versions of all of our podcasts. And then vice versa, if you're listening on Spotify or any other audio podcast platform, we do upload a video version where we are on camera. We're reacting. I like the video podcast because we're sharing pictures throughout the podcast of the people that we're talking about, so you can get a little bit of a visual, and just facial expressions tell a story. So I love the video podcast. So if you're listening and you think you would enjoy a video podcast and you didn't know that we did that, well, just know that we do that and come on over to YouTube. If you are not on our Patreon and you would like access to exclusive content or early access to episodes, meet us over there. We do polls pretty much on a weekly basis. So I want to give a nice shout out to Brooke, Barbara, our friend Shane, my brother Matthew, Allie, Ashley, Amy, Anika. She's on here twice. Anika, I don't know if you know this, but you signed up for a $5 membership and a $1 membership. So I don't know how that worked for you. Billy and Chrissy. And then we have our duck friends, Luann, Susan, Corey, Debbie, Jennifer, and Missy.
Yay.
So yeah, all of you are supporting us in growing this podcast and making it better. So we appreciate you all. And if you want to join, we're happy to have you. And yeah, I feel like me ranting beforehand I think I'm done now. So
you ready for my story?
Oh, yes, I'm ready for your story.
So today I'm bringing you It is still an active murder case, so not missing, but it's an active murder investigation. It is on Anne Harmeier, and she was born August 27th, 1957. She actually went missing September 12th, 1977. So she was just 20 years old when she went missing.
1977, and it's still active.
Yep, it will be 47 years this September with no answers on what happened to her. I'm going to start you off on that morning, and then I'm going to give you guys a little background about who Anne was. But on the morning of September 12th, 1977, 20-year-old Anne left her home in Cambridge City, Indiana, to drive back to Indiana University's Bloomington campus, where she was a student deeply involved in the school's drama program. And she did not arrive in class that day, and her mother grew concerned when she didn't receive an expected phone call from Anne that night. So that's the day she had been at home with her mom that weekend, and then on Monday she was headed back to go to school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how far away of a drive that is to Bloomington. I know she was on that 30 in Highway 37.
Mm.
How far away is it from us?
It's like almost directly east of Indianapolis, in between Indianapolis and Ohio. Back in the 70s, I don't know if I 69 and I 70 were a thing, so it was probably a little over a 2 hour, 2.5 hour drive for her. I don't know if the interstates were a thing
See, this
in 77.
says she took Highway 37.
Highway 37. See, that's not even giving me an option because
It's not giving me that option either.
let me go to like avoid interstates, avoid highways.
I've heard of 37, though. I know a lot of people take that.
Here's just, this is State Road 46, 44. I'm not seeing 37. Maybe 37 has like completely changed. But when you're not taking the interstate, it takes about 2.5 hours.
Oh, hold on. I think I found it.
Okay.
It's actually what looks like it says 69 is 37. That's
Oh.
that first route you would take.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. 69 was 37, wasn't it? I forgot.
So it looks like about an hour and 47 minutes, maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
So it was a nice little drive.
Yeah. So I'm going to start at the beginning. The story of Anne, ultimately and tragic, begins with a love story that blossomed at IU in the early 1940s before being interrupted by World War II. Robert Harmeier grew up in Cambridge City, where his family had deep roots before enrolling in IU. It was there that he met and fell for Marjorie, a student from Bicknell in Knox County on the other side of the state. Robert, who was 4 years older than Marge, earned both an undergraduate and law degree from IU before enlisting in the Army in 1943. Marge remained in Bloomington to finish her teaching degree. They were married after Robert was discharged in 1946 and set up their home in Cambridge City. It says a Wayne County community of about 2,400. Robert taught school and Marge taught music. So I think but he was also a lawyer, I also read. And they had their daughter Anne, and just 4 years later, Robert died of a brain tumor.
Oh.
He was 44.
Oh, he's so young.
Her mom never remarried and raised Anne as a single mother. Those two were super close because she never remarried. She just basically, from what I've read, she just put her whole life into her daughter.
Oh.
Anne shared her mother's musical talent and worked hard on those skills. She loved music from like a little kid, and then in high school, it says she was in choir. She did all the things. Anne continued to pursue her musical interest in high school. She sang in the choir. She played in the band. She landed a lead role of Navy nurse in the high school's production of South Pacific. She made another splash in a leading role of West Side Story. In 1974, Anne was selected queen of her hometown's annual fall festival. She was also active in her church. It said she sang in the choir there. But it said in many ways, though, Anne enjoyed being a typical kid. She liked Mountain Dew, pizza, quarter pounders from McDonald's, chocolate, and other junk foods.
Quarter pounders from McDonald's.
It said she dated. She was playful and fun too. And quick. Friends recall with a good-natured joke or quip when her mother would say, Anne, you're a dear. She might respond and say, no, I'm an antelope.
That's
It's
cute.
yeah, it said Anne was respectful of her mother and appreciated all the hard work her mom put in as a single parent. It said when Anne bought her first Beatles record at a local store, she begged the clerk to keep quiet about it. It was the 1960s. Cambridge City was a conservative small town. She didn't want anyone to hold her interest in rock and roll against her mother.
Those were scandalous times.
Yeah. And this was a neighbor. His name was Scott. He said he lived a couple doors down from Anne and her mother in the quiet neighborhood. He said Marge was his music teacher. His dad was the principal at one of the schools where her mom taught music. And Anne would occasionally watch Scott when his parents weren't home. He said, when she babysat with me, she was very kind and attentive. I kind of thought of her as a friend, even though she was my babysitter. Everybody liked her. She was well known and just a very sweet young lady.
Mm-hmm.
He remembers seeing her in the play she was in and how good she was.
Aw.
And this is recounts of like her family. And it said when Anne came home from college visits, she would leave notes under her pillow and in other places for her mother to find later. They were short, uplifting messages. Thanks for the good weekend, or simply I love you. So she was at IU, but she would come home every weekend to spend it with her mom.
They were very close.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And it said mother and daughter watched out for each other in other ways too. When traveling, they would often hang a man's suit or coat in their car to disguise that they weren't, in fact, two women alone on the road.
Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's smart.
Yep. Anne was an only child. Anne's father was an attorney, it says, when he'd passed away when she was 4. And her, like I said, her mom was a music teacher. Now, this comes back to when she went missing in the fall of 1977. Anne had headed back to college at Indiana University in Bloomington. She was an incoming junior that year. He said Anne was born an entertainer, and her talent, no doubt, she inherited from her mother. They were both like into theater and everything. And he said she really blossomed. So this weekend in particular that Anne went missing, she had came home that weekend because she was visiting a friend in the hospital from her hometown. She had originally had planned to travel back to campus that Sunday night, but her mother was concerned about Anne traveling at night. So she convinced her to try back on Monday morning when she suspected it would be much safer. Anne set off for Bloomington on Monday, September 12th, 1977, in her 1971 Pontiac. It's like a muscle car, and it was about a 2-hour drive back to school. She left early Monday morning, and she had a class at 10:30, but she never made it to class. Her car broke down on State Route 37, a highway Anne was familiar with, connected in Indianapolis and Bloomington. Her car broke down about 2 miles north of Martinsville and approximately 20 minutes from Bloomington. So she was pretty close to Bloomington when she broke down. They said people almost immediately knew something was wrong when she didn't show up for her 10:30 class because she wasn't someone that missed class.
Mm-hmm.
She was very diligent. So that was unusual, but back in this time, there wasn't like phones or like, people letting no one, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She also didn't call her mother when she promised when she got to campus. So later that day, Anne missed a rehearsal at the school theater. Her peers in the theater community thought it was strange that she didn't show. Her mom had been calling Anne's off-campus apartment over and over and over again, but her daughter never picked up. Her mom and a friend decided to drive to Bloomington to look for Anne themselves. Because, like I said, this was back in a time where, like, who do you even
Mm-hmm.
try to call? There wasn't like cell phones.
Yeah.
Um,
It would be such a weird time to live in.
mm-hmm. So it was her mom and one of her friends. They wanted to retrace the route to Bloomington. It was close to midnight when they came across Anne's car parked on the side of the road. They found the car was locked. Her laundry and books were still in the car. Her mom had done all her laundry for and folded it, and they were still in the back seat. So since the car was locked, they headed to the nearest police station to report that something was wrong. The Indiana State Police Bloomington District. This is something they had posted on September 12th, 1977, that she was reported missing after failing to return to Bloomington campus. Her rust-colored 1971 Pontiac was found parked on the shoulder of State Road 37 with the doors locked and the hazard lights flashing. According to the Indiana State Police, it was later determined that the engine radiator was out of water and the car had overheated. The family later on learned more about Anne's car troubles. And I don't know if I put it all in here, but I had read she had actually had to stop at a couple places and even like bought a part for her car. And someone, I guess at one couldn't help her put it in. So she knew something was going wrong with her car. And
Mm-hmm.
she had made a couple stops to try to like
Yeah.
get it fixed. And that's what it says. It said she made a couple stops to some gas stations to have them look at it. At least one she visited was only about 10 or so miles from the actual site where her car broke down. The police apparently interviewed the individuals who had contact with Anne that morning, and they apparently all checked out. Back home in Cambridge City, the community really banded together and started holding meetings. They had regular meetings about what they could do to get the word out about Anne's disappearance and try to figure out what might have happened. They said she was such a cautious person that a lot of her friends and family said that she would never get in a car with somebody who she didn't feel comfortable with or didn't know.
Yeah.
That she was very, like, she was smart. She wasn't someone that would have just hopped in with somebody. But I also read where her mom thought she went willingly because the car being locked. She thought if it was a situation where she was grabbed out of her car, that she wouldn't have, locked it in the midst of that's what her mom thought.
I mean, and that's logical. Maybe it was someone in a utility truck that looked like it was someone that
Yeah,
actually knew what they were doing. Like, let me take you down the road.
yeah. Her cousin, though, who was 10 years younger than her, he's older now when he was giving this interview, but he said he thinks that Anne might have been so concerned about getting to that 10:30 class that morning that she decided to accept a ride from someone to get back in that time because she was so diligent and probably really likely concerned about missing that class that she could get in the car with someone who she felt was safe. And he said the same thing. If she was taken against her will, he doesn't think the car would have been locked. He says that he was about 10 years old when his cousin Anne vanished. I remember my parents letting me know soon after she disappeared that she had gone missing and that they were definitely concerned about it. He said the family initially felt that Anne would be found safe. He said once the authorities began investigating Anne's disappearance within days, the tenor of the case changed dramatically, like when it was 2 or 3 days and they still hadn't found her. He said that the police, though, even conducted a road check near the area where Anne's car had broken down. He said they actually brought the car back to the spot where it was, broke down at. And they would stop vehicles along the way and ask them if they had seen this vehicle a week ago and if they had seen Anne or anyone else engaging with her. And I thought this was very smart. He said they did this for like 2 mornings at that time frame. So like anyone that travels that regularly, they stopped everybody and was like, "Did you see this? Did you see any other cars?"
Uh-huh.
He said with no cell phone or internet, the community turned to making flyers and distributing them out throughout central Indiana along that 37 highway. Scott said his cousin's disappearance even sparked national interest and attention. I think her story was actually featured on NBC Nightly News, he said. So the search kept going on, and weeks started to go by, and her mom was just at this point like devastated
Mm-hmm.
because they're like, where could she be? You
Yeah.
know? Unfortunately, the search ended 5 weeks later. Towards the end of October, there was a farmer who was walking through the cornfields and he came across her body. The farmer called the police, who responded immediately and identified the body as Anne's. So on October 19th, 1977, his name is Lawrence Stafford, a farmer. He said his children often rode like their motorbikes through the area where she was located. And he said, I was just going along picking up like corn stalks. And he saw the body laying between two rows. It says officials knew right away it was Anne. She was wearing an Indiana t-shirt, her like IU t-shirt. So she was identified by clothing, through dental records, and her purse was found nearby. It was a brutal scene. One of her shoelaces was used to tie her hands behind her back, and the other was tied around her neck, and her hairbrush was used to tighten the knot. And I don't know what that means. I couldn't like picture it.
You couldn't picture it. So I'm going back to John Wayne Gacy. He would do that. He would like tie something around their neck and then he'd tie it around the hairbrush in the back and you
Oh.
keep turning it and it
Okay,
keeps
that
getting
makes
tighter and
sense.
tighter.
That makes sense.
So that's
Okay.
that's what I'm picturing.
Okay. And after she was raped, her assailant had used the hairbrush to twist the knot around her neck to tighten it, and she eventually succumbed by asphyxiation. So she was sexually assaulted and murdered.
So you said this is still unsolved, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody ever try to tie this to Ted Bundy?
No, but I will get there.
Okay.
It said more than a month after her disappearance, her body was found in a cornfield approximately 7 miles northeast of Martinsville, Indiana. Her mom was devastated. He said as a child, then the family didn't divulge in like any details to the children at the time. He said they wanted it to shield us from like everything.
Who's he?
The cousin,
Okay.
who was 10 at the time.
Yeah, okay.
But he says he does remember attending Anne's funeral that fall. He said we were in this little church in Cambridge City. It was just crowded, and there were people outside trying to get in. He said he remembered sitting in the wooden pew amongst his siblings and cousins. What really impacted me the most was that all the people in attendance were just completely devastated. He said, at 10 years old, that really stuck with me. Scott said, which her mom was his aunt. And Scott said his aunt, Marjorie, did not recover from losing her daughter in such a brutal way. After Anne's body was found, my aunt had basically given up on living, much less devoting any energy on tracking down her killer. She died of brain cancer a couple years later.
Well, at least she didn't have to. I mean, this is terrible for me to say, but
It's still unsolved. I mean,
yeah, I'm just glad she didn't have to live forever without her daughter, just like in agony.
so this is where Scott said their family was led to believe that Anne's case got closed, like somewhere along the way. Our family was under the impression that Anne's killer had been caught and was no longer living. He recalled, he said that for a long time they believed Anne had been killed by a man named Stephen Judy. According to the Clark County, Indiana prosecutor's attorney, Judy was put to death for the April 1979 murders of Terry and her three young children. He was executed on March 9th, 1981 by electric chair. Their bodies were found in the same county where Anne had died, in similar type of MO, where the woman had been tied up and raped and strangled. He added that before Judy was executed, he had the opportunity to confess to other murders and crimes. So he confessed to several other murders of women that he committed, some in other states, Scott said. But when they asked him about my cousin, he told them that he had no responsibility in her death and he had no idea who she was. So I looked up this Stephen Judy guy. It says he was an American mass murderer, suspected serial killer, and he was convicted of that Terry and her three young children. But it said he did confess to Mary Carr that he had raped and murdered and other women in multiple states, and that he had killed more women than he could recall. Linda of Indianapolis, he confessed to other possible murder of a woman in Louisiana who he said he kidnapped and raped but didn't remember the name. He said there were two other possible murders he committed in the Indianapolis area. When they looked into it, I guess they were trying to tie him to this one and basically told the family, like, he's dead, and this was years later, and that's what they told the family at this point. It's a mix up because that's what the family claims, that someone came and told them.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens was when this got brought back up, Indiana State Police review jail records showed that Judy was imprisoned in the Marion County Jail the day of her disappearance. It had been theorized that the information about Judy's incarceration could have been wrong. It said her mom, though, Anne, who died, believed Judy murdered her daughter. So I guess maybe they told her that he did before she passed. It's really confusing because it's still open now because these records came to light years later that were like, no, he was in jail.
Couldn't have been
But
him.
I think they told the family, it's
Someone jumped
him.
the gun.
Yeah. And
Or they were
then,
tired of working on it, so they
yeah.
were just like, let's blame somebody.
Yeah, so then when they did digging, they realized, well, it shows he was in jail that day. And so now it says her case is unsolved and is still being investigated by cold case detectives. Her cousin Scott believes that Judy had nothing to do with Anne's death. He said there's clear evidence that he was in jail on the day Anne was killed, and he had plenty of opportunities to confess. He did reveal plenty about other crimes he took part in, but he said he was adamant when it came to playing a role in Anne's death. He said it had become apparent to everyone that he knew nothing about Anne or any circumstances surrounding it. And this guy did get put to death, and he did confess to all kinds. So I know her family truly believes, like, in their head, like, why wouldn't he, if
Yeah.
he did it, why wouldn't he commit to her? But another thing is, he has that guy that died. He made comments that there are some, like, he knows he did, he can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
So this was in 2022, so not far, not long ago. It said the Indianapolis Star in September of 2022 stated that an Indiana State Police review of jail records showed that he was in jail that day. However, the paper noted that the records no longer exist. So even though this person put in there that he was, those records are gone. There's nothing today that can prove. They were either lost or thrown out. Judy's attorney told the Indiana Star that Judy denied that he was responsible for Anne's death, but added that Judy did have problems telling the truth sometimes, so you can't necessarily believe everything that he said. So there's that. Was he in jail? Was he not? He has the same similar, but so another person that got brought up, his name is Jeffrey Hand, who in 1980 was shot and killed by police in Howard County, Indiana, while attempting to abduct a woman from her car. In 2019, Hand was linked by DNA to the 1972 murder of Indiana State University student. It was unclear whether the DNA evidence has been or could be recovered from the existing evidence in Anne's cases for comparison. So this Jeffrey Hand guy was an American murderer, kidnapper, and another suspect serial killer linked to two known murders committed in Indiana from 1972 to 73. He was deemed mentally unfit to stand trial. He was released and later killed following a botched kidnapping attempt in 1978. But yeah, he got linked to more through DNA evidence down the road.
He kills people. He's deemed unfit to face trial.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm
then,
assuming by mental
yeah.
capacity, like it said, mental capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So then he goes to a mental hospital. If he can't be tried, then he shouldn't be living on the street. You're that those deaths are on those people's hands.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
Oh.
And this girl's name was Pam Million, and it was September 15th, 1972. He bound and gagged the body of a 19-year-old Indiana State University student, and she was found in the trunk of her home car by her father.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
That poor dad.
Sexual assault in the same. Yeah, and he's linked to more. So they're both out in Indiana doing all these crimes during, Anne's death. It says decades after Anne's murder, Scott, her cousin, was listening to a story on the radio that brought his cousin's case to the front of his mind again. The arrest of the Golden State Killer in California prompted a renewed interest among himself and family members. He said it made him think of Anne because the Golden State Killer was active in the 70s and 80s, arrested in 2018, pled guilty to 13 murders, among other charges, and is now serving life in prison. If that case could be solved after so long, why not Anne's? I decided to reach out to the Indiana State Police, he said. He filed a Freedom of Information Act request for Anne's case file, but the request was denied by the Indiana State Police because they said the case was open and active, so you can't have any information. As you can imagine, following more than 40 years without any arrest, my family was devastated, he said. The state police had told us that because no one was officially charged in the killing and Anne's killing, that it was technically still open. So he decided he would look into Anne's case as much as he could without those reports. He would tell, like, I guess, work colleagues shortly after the Golden State Killer had been found that he was going to solve his cousin's Anne's case. And they were all thought he was like joking at first, but they realized he was serious. And some of his coworkers immediately were like, "We want in, like we want to help. Like if
Yeah.
this is, you know what I mean? Like, are you seriously going to do it? Then we want to help you." So his colleagues got together. One of her names is Hannah and Scott, and they immediately became serious about wanting to solve Anne's case. And they decided they were going to build a social media campaign. They created a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter accounts dedicating to finding out who killed Anne. But it's different than most Facebooks we're familiar with. I'm actually going to pull it up. They decided to take a different take on the account to make it stand out. So it's told from Anne's point of view. And it says she's rather cheeky. It's rather different, which I think makes us stand out. So on their page, Anne herself makes post, and it says, "My New Year's resolutions aren't that different from most 20-year-olds. Eat healthier, make more time for myself, and find the guy who raped and killed me." So and I got on there, they're all like from, like Anne,
Uh-huh.
but I thought that was a really cool take on.
Yeah. That is cool.
Mm-hmm.
That is interesting.
Yeah. They want to spread as much word about Anne as much as possible and raise awareness about her death to get people talking and remembering and hopefully come forward with new information that would crack the case. They said as far as DNA goes, Scott said that there was evidence collected at the scene and it has been tested, but there haven't been any matches yet. At the time in the 70s, nobody really thought about DNA evidence that would become critical in the future. But evidence was preserved and it is occasionally tested, he said. So we're hopeful that one day there will be a match. He said they have two goals now. Our number one goal is to find Ann's killer. Finding the guy who did this and getting him locked away for good, if not worse, was my end goal. He said that through researching in his cousin's case, he has led to a new goal as well. At first, I just cared about my cousin's case, but he said I started coming across a lot of victims, particularly women in Indiana, who disappeared or were murdered in the 70s and 80s, whose cases have remained open and unsolved for decades. He's hoping to raise funds to create a dedicated cold case unit to look into some of the many unsolved cases in Indiana. Anne is just one of almost 100 unsolved cold cases listed on the Indiana State Public website. While she was initially the driving force behind Scott's interests, he ultimately realized how much his efforts could help other cold cases. This wouldn't just help Anne, but it would help a lot of people, especially women who were murdered whose crimes have gone unsolved because of who they were. Whether they were people of color, whether they were sex workers, whether they came from marginal communities, he said, I know that's something Anne would have wanted. So that's where I leave my story. What are your thoughts?
What are my
And
thoughts?
what are you, they didn't mention Ted Bundy in here.
Okay, so Ted Bundy, he was active during that time. Ted Bundy was mostly over like towards the West Coast, like Utah, Colorado, Washington
Mm-hmm.
State, but he did go down to Florida at one point.
Hmm.
So, and I Googled while you were talking too. You know, he's confessed to 28 murders, but some people estimate that he was responsible for hundreds. And she is like the perfect candidate for Ted Bundy.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the type of women he killed.
Yeah.
People on the side of the road. He was a very good looking guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first thing that popped in my mind. So I like Googled when was Ted Bundy active, and he was active between 1974 and 1978. So she's right there.
So the Facebook is Who Killed Anne, if you guys want to look at that. Who Killed Anne?
I'm gonna Google it.
Yeah. And it honestly, it only has 1,000 followers. So we could get people to follow that. That would be great. So this post, so that Stephen Judy, he was young. I want to say he was like 24. And he didn't look like somebody probably that would. But on Who Killed Anne, it said Stephen Judy abducted me, tied me up, raped me, and killed me. Please, that little twerp would have been no match for me. So she's saying it wasn't him.
Oh, she's saying it wasn't him.
Mm-hmm.
That little old twerp.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess if they do have DNA and they are
Yeah.
testing it, it probably wasn't Ted Bundy because
Mm-hmm.
they've probably compared it to Ted Bundy just because he
Mm-hmm.
was active and people think it's a
Yeah.
lot of people he killed.
That Stephen Judy, I want to say when they sentenced him to death, he was young too. He was 24 when he died.
Holy
When they
crap.
sentenced him to death.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm. 4 confirmed, 7 confessed, 10 plus suspected. So he was young when he was out doing this. So he looks like someone, I mean, you might trust to get in a car with. I don't know. He was 23 when he committed the murders. So I mean, must have executed pretty quick back then.
Yeah, nowadays they're on death row for like
Judy
20
was
years.
executed age 24 at the Michigan City, Indiana electric chair. His last meal consisted of prime rib, lobster tails, potatoes with sour cream, chef salad with French dressing, and a dinner roll. He also requested 4 cans of beer, but they were denied.
Yeah, I don't think they can give you alcohol. You'd probably be set on fire
Hmm.
during the electric chair. I don't know how that the alcohol in your body works with that, but
So he was really young.
really young. Man, yeah, they executed pretty quick back then.
Hmm.
Wow.
And then the other one they were talking about was that Jeffrey Han, who killed that girl from ISU and put her body in the trunk.
For her father to find.
Hmm.
Oh, my God.
He was 28 when he died. So they're both young looking. I don't know. There was a lot going on back then.
Yeah.
I almost wonder with the one who They don't know if it's the record, don't know, can't remember. Because he was right in that area, right in that time frame.
Like he will
Yeah.
admittedly say, there's some of them I don't know or like can't
Mm-hmm.
remember.
Yeah.
But like he'll sit there
But
and
he said
say,
he did.
matter of a fact, I did not do
Yeah.
that one. I would believe him.
Yeah, and he said that. He's like, I have no like knowledge of that one.
But as the family, I could get why you would cling on to it because you
Mm-hmm.
want to have closure. You
This
want to,
is where her car was found, and
uh-huh.
that's where her body was found.
Oh no.
So not far at all.
Yep, I don't know. The 70s and the 80s were really scary times. Whoever started like cameras
Yeah.
and surveillance footage. I mean, we still have stuff happen today, but it doesn't seem like we have as much stuff happen today
Mm-mm.
as there was back in the olden days. Or at least people get
No,
caught
yeah.
more.
Because there's a lot of unsolved ones, unfortunately.
The Lauren Spear one is still one that I don't.
Mm-hmm.
She was caught on camera going to her apartment. Like, why couldn't we catch her on camera leaving?
Mm-hmm.
What happened? We're gonna get
Right.
into Lauren Spear one of these days.
Yeah. No, this one's tricky because I mean, the family don't have any answers. And it would be nice if they did.
Oh yeah. I just hope to God that if anything ever happens to me that they get caught.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine my killer or someone that I love's killer just like living on the street, not
Mm-hmm.
being caught. Lord,
Yep. So
I can't imagine what that's like for a family.
at least they have some DNA to go off of, but it seems the person who did it's DNA is never surfaced.
Might have been a one-time occasion.
Yeah.
Probably someone living in Martinsville, outstanding citizen.
Crime of opportunity. I mean, her car was broke down.
Yeah,
And so sad.
it is.
And it seemed like she had a bright future and was so close to her mom.
I feel like too, the 70s and 80s were so like there was so much coverage on people
Mm-hmm.
getting murdered and whatnot that a young kid may have just been like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll go out one like, oh, it's an opportunity. I may see if
Mm-hmm.
I can get away with it. Like it was
I
heavily
think
covered.
I think since her mom and her were so careful, like they did that thing with the suits, like, and she was smart. I think it had to be someone that was probably charming and good looking and didn't come across as like, you know what I mean, a creep.
Yeah.
Like you said, Ted Bundy. I mean, he was super charming.
Oh yeah. Very charming.
It couldn't be someone that you look at and you're like, oh, that guy's creepy. I'm not getting in his
That
car.
guy's a creep. Yeah, it can't be that guy from your last story.
Mm-mm.
That guy was yucky looking.
Yeah.
He was scary. Oh my gosh.
No, so I just, especially with both those boys being so young, I would trust someone my age over like than an older, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Typically, I feel like, I don't know.
I think the only person I would trust would be like a really old man.
Right, that you can
That's
fight off.
about it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even think it to be like to fight off, just be like, there's no way he can have ill intentions. He's a sweet little fragile old man. But like, yeah,
I would
anybody
pick
that
who I thought I could fight and would fight with.
see, I don't think that would come to my head. I would just be like, oh, I see the good in everybody,
No,
and
yeah,
I
if they look like they could overpower me, I would never get in their car. Know how nice they were.
yeah, I'm a
But if
little
they
weakling.
look like I could probably, I'd be like, okay, maybe I can trust this one.
You know, poor Anne. And if she did let her guard down just because she wanted to make sure she got to
Got to
class,
class.
we need to stop holding that kind of pressure on
Mm-hmm.
children and people
Yeah.
that they'll let their guard down and put themselves at risk just to get to a
Mm-hmm.
class. Like, I don't think we should put that kind of pressure on people.
Very sad.
But, she may have been putting that pressure on herself. I don't know. But,
No, but just the fact that her car was locked, I don't know. It makes me think she was just like standing there, broke down.
well, and she had her purse with her too.
Mm-hmm.
This person probably picked her up,
Yeah.
said, hey, I'll take you back to this. She may have been like, because you
Mm-hmm.
said that she was at a service station like 10
Yeah, that
miles ago
wasn't
or
far.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she might have been like, "Can you take me back to this service station that I was
Mm-hmm.
at?" They know like what's going on with my
Yeah.
car. I'll go back there. She grabs her purse, locks her car, gets in the car, and
Yep.
she's done for. Because
And this is broad daylight.
that's what definitely makes me think that, like, since she had her purse with her.
I just wish when they were stopping all those, I didn't find where they ever, like, from stopping everyone, got any suspects or, like, had anyone seen a certain car, you know?
Nothing was suspicious.
Not that I had read. Um,
I feel like I would be a terrible witness when it came to that
yeah,
because I don't pay attention.
yeah.
I'm too busy singing in my car.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
it's
It
terrible.
would have been nice if someone just seen another vehicle description they could have gave that was there. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe that is somewhere. I just didn't find it when I was looking because I did read where they did a lot of those stops.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what came about it. But that was good of them to try to
Mm-hmm.
try to see the people that travel that road every day.
Yeah, they did roadblocks.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that they took her car back there, right? So that they didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
like give a description. This is what the
Yeah.
car looked like. Yeah, that was
Yep. They
good.
had it sitting right where it was.
Yeah, that was good.
Like, did you see this? You know?
Yeah, not just did you see a red car?
Yeah.
No, this car right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, or whatever color it was. You said rust color, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
assuming that's like one of those old reddish colors.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of, it seems like crazy people out and about at that time.
It was a scary time to live.
Yeah.
My parents don't ever act like they were ever scared growing up, but they sounds like they should have been.
Yeah. With what was out there.
Like, and that was a safe. I remember growing up in the 90s, and that was a safe time. Like, it was safe.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, it's not safe, but it's actually opposite. Nowadays, it's more safe because we have more doorbell cameras and cameras on people all the time.
Yeah.
It's more safe to let your kids
Yeah.
go out and
Yeah.
play in the creek, play in the down the road. Like, it's more safe
Mm-hmm.
because almost like everybody has a doorbell camera nowadays. Almost.
Yeah. I was just reading, and someone on Reddit said they think they executed Judy way too soon, and he would have been valuable to law enforcement for helping with other unsolved cases if they would have maybe kept him alive a little longer, you know?
Yeah.
They kind of really did jump the gun on.
I don't know why they did that.
Mm-mm.
They didn't want to waste
And this
resources,
person
apparently.
mentioned Stephen Judy and then even Ted Bundy, he says.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Ted Bundy was during that time. And she's a pretty girl. She's the age that Ted Bundy would kill women.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching it was the show with Zac Efron, but did you ever watch that?
Yes, I did.
The show with Zac Efron, like, I feel like there were a lot of times he would hit them, like, while they were in the, can't remember the movie. But it's like one of them, she would be like getting something out of her trunk and he would just like hit her over the head.
Yeah.
But she wasn't hit over the head. I don't remember how Ted Bundy killed all of his people. But I do know John Wayne Gacy did that tourniquet thing, or not tourniquet, but where he would put something
Yeah.
around their thing and
Mm-hmm.
turn it like that. But John Wayne Gacy didn't kill women, so
Yeah.
it definitely wasn't John Wayne Gacy. It just makes you wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Because they say that Ted Bundy might have been involved in like 100,
Yeah.
not just the 28 they know that he did.
Right.
A lot. And I don't think any of them were in Indiana, but some of the 100 that they're suspecting might be in Indiana. Because
Yeah.
he did travel from the west to Florida at one point. He may have drove right through here.
Mm-hmm. Now, I forget, did he confess to some that he didn't get caught for?
I don't remember. I don't
Okay.
remember that about Ted Bundy. I don't remember that movie.
I thought he was like on the verge, but like was messing with them. And maybe I'm wrong, where he would be like, you know,
Oh, when I Googled, okay, so I Googled to see like where he was at. It says he did ultimately confess to 28 murders,
mm,
but some estimated that he was responsible for hundreds. So yeah, I guess he did confess to 28.
hmm.
I don't know why the world was so scary in the
Mm-mm.
70s.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in with us.
Yeah, thank you for tuning into this one. And yeah, Whitney, how did it feel to like investigate your first murder case?
I did enjoy this one. I
Yeah.
mean, I there was a lot of background information on her life and who she was prior
Mm-hmm.
and her parents, and it's nice trying to get to know the victims. And she seemed like a really sweet, wonderful person who had a really bright future in front of
Really
her.
bright future and a really good
Mm-hmm. Home life,
home
yeah.
life and relationship with her mom.
Mm-hmm.
So sad. Yeah. But yeah, thank you all for listening. And next week, I'm going to be bringing you the story of Sylvia Likens. And it's really, really rough. So we'll get onto that one. But yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Patreon. If you have the time, please leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on. We know your time is precious, and you chose us anyway. We are forever grateful. We hope your day is great, and we'll catch you next week.